everyone. My name is Yvonne Maxkin. I am the founder and the chair of the channel community and also the founder and CEO of Co-Cheer, a coaching and consulting practice and a channel community gold supporter. Welcome to the very next episode of Smashing the Class Ceiling. In this series, I'll be interviewing and showcasing some of the fantastic individuals that we have in the channel who have all come from a low social economic background, but have gone on to build incredibly successful careers. They'll be sharing their stories with us on how they navigated the corporate corridors and smashed through that class ceiling. So without delay, I would like to welcome my very next guest, Richard Ford. So Richard is the Global Services and Solutions Market Leader and General Manager for Northwest Europe for HP, and also a trustee for both the Caldecott Foundation and Trailblazers. Thank you, Richard, for agreeing to come on the show and share your story with us.
Hi, Yvonne. Great to be here, and thank you very much for the opportunity. It's always nice to catch up with friends that I've known for a long time in the channel. So great to be here. Thank you.
Oh no, the pleasure's all mine, and I'm really excited. So, Richard, obviously you and I have known each other for quite some time now. I think we met when you were a sales director at HP, and I was still at CW, and we've spent many a lunch and dinner together over the course of our career. And obviously, while I know we had similar backgrounds, I wasn't really quite aware of your full story until we met last week. And it was so amazing and so incredible. I just really wanted you to share it with us. So really, really thank you for coming on. I know there's lots to talk about, but let's just
Yep.
start off with where you grew up and talk to me about your early career.
Where I grew up. Wow. Okay. So that's really, so I grew up all over the place, but I guess if we start off where I was born, that was Salisbury in Wiltshire, Odstock Hospital, which is when I mention that, I get a few laughs. I can tell you, says a lot about me. But so no. And for the early part of my childhood, so sort of up until nearly 3 years old, I was based down just outside of Salisbury. And then just to give context to your question, so around my childhood, so my father died when I was nearly three, and things didn't. My mother struggled with that. I also had a baby brother at the time as well, and as a consequence of that, ended up kind of going into care, and there were reasons for that. One of them was she remarried, and that particular person wasn't, let's just say, not very nice, apart from being someone that regularly committed domestic abuse, was a paedophile, and very violent and alcoholic, which caused a lot of problems. That was the reason I got taken into care. And I stayed in care until I was 14 years old. So came out, and then moved back to Walthamstow in East London, which is where I was living at that time, in a council block, 20-story council block of flats just off of Walthamstow Market. And couldn't fit in. Obviously, been away from the family for a very long time, and ended up going to live with my nan down in the countryside for until I was about sort of 18, 19.
Yeah.
And then came back, and I uh, I went to the local comprehensive school, Sir George Monarchs, which is now, I think it's a sixth form college. Lovely school, but obviously had to start afresh. And let's just say my desire was to really get out, earn money. As you've said at the outset, I was coming from a very impoverished background.
Yeah.
Never, if you wanted something, you had to go out and earn it. So at that time, I remember having a paper round, delivering leaflets, and working in Sainsbury's, three different jobs. So I think had a very strong work ethic from a young age, and wanted to get out. So whilst I stayed on in the sixth form for a little while, I thought, no, sod this, left and went out and started earning money. And eventually, through various different things, ended up working in sales.
Yeah.
And hence my sales career began. So, yes, that would have been in the 90s.
And what was that sales job again? Remind me. I mean, I think I remember, but obviously people listening to this won't know. So,
Yeah, I mean, initially I was working in a local in a stationery company in Kentish Town, where I actually was going out with what was then, I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Spices. You met the
yes,
wholesale
I
the
love
furniture. So
stationery. So of course,
yeah,
I've heard of spices.
there you
Yeah.
go. So I used to go out with Spicer's catalogs under my arm with the wrapping, because in those days they used to put your company logo wrapping on the cover, and then you'd go out and obviously this is our catalog sort of thing. So I used to go knocking on doors, literally knocking on doors, and trying to get orders and build relationships. And I think I went from a standing start to maybe 60, 70,000 pounds a month from nothing, within I think it was within 6 months. So kind of figured out, this sales thing is quite enjoyable. I like it. And obviously within there was a lot of what I would deem as IT consumables, so toner cartridges, dare I say it, 5¼ inch, 3½ inch floppy disks, and ribbons, and all manner of different things, pelican ribbons, and so on. So that's really how I guess I got into the business, and then from there I moved. I went to work in a company called Boise Cascade, which was more global. Sorry, not Boise Cascade. I went to Computer Center. So not sorry, not Computer Center. I went to Folex. So
Oh,
Folex, which was a company that effectively sold films, papers, and so on for inkjet, and laser printers and so on. They were based up in Birmingham. And I was there for a couple of years, worked with some great people. I wouldn't say I have regular contact, but still contact with Simon Warren, who was then my sales manager and taught me quite a lot. But I did a few years there, and then I moved to Computer Center, and I worked out of the Computer Center office up in Birmingham. And
yeah,
again, very, very different culture. Still have very, very fond memories of my time at CC. Lots of very big characters, and I would say it certainly taught you um, how to sell, how to
yeah,
hit you're very numbers focused, and also a business that understands the cost of doing business. So everything has a cost center, and you put something in the warehouse, there's a cost to that. It's going to go on your P&L. So it was great times, great culture. But I moved from there into Boise Cascade, another stationers, but again, big focus on IT consumables, and then from there to HP. And I guess my I've had 20 years at HP, in various different roles as an individual contributor, right through to where I am now at director level, with a couple of years where I left and went to work for Brother, which was again an incredibly enjoyable experience. So yeah, there you go, the full gamut.
that's that is some career. Now, so was Computer Center your first time in the channel, do you think? I know you obviously worked for the stationery companies, and I suppose
Yeah,
you could say IT consumables, there's a
yeah.
part of it there, but really your first sort of role in the channel was with CC.
Yeah, I would say CC. I mean, obviously they have such a huge presence in the UK, and now obviously extensively across Europe and into other parts of the world. So I think CC was the first company where I kind of you've and I actually, when I first went or was working at CC, I was based down in Croxley Green in Watford. So I was with the company when they moved to Hatfield, and obviously going from where we were in Croxley Green to Hatfield was like, wow, this place is just on another scale.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't do things by half, as you know.
Yeah, and they're still smashing it. So obviously
Yeah.
something's still working for sure. Brilliant. So how did you end up getting the job at CC? Because that's quite a unique transition, if you don't mind me asking. You know, you went from stationery to computer center. That's still quite a leap.
So yeah, I mean, look, I think you probably more than anyone are aware that in our industry, it's very relationship driven. It's about your network, it's who you know. I'd been building up relationships. I'd been going into the Croxley Green office and working with people like Mary Gomez and Wendy Chan, who has now retired from CC, but she was my manager for quite a while when I first joined CC, and just build it, trying to, because in those days I was trying to effectively sell to them.
Right.
So and that's how it happened. And off the back of me trying to sell to CC, I ended up actually interviewing for a job and joining Ian Fishers, who ran the consumables team then, joining his team. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
That most of the people that I've interviewed on this podcast have a fairly similar story. They've sort
yeah,
of navigated it via another route that's landed them in the channel. I don't think most people know what the channel is, to be honest, outside of the people that are in it. Whenever I speak to people, they think it's something, a piece of water that connects the UK and France, or something
yeah,
that use to tune your TV in. So
yeah.
yeah, it's one of the best kept secret in my opinion. So, what have been the biggest challenges that you think you've faced, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I think if I go back to my childhood, obviously what I went through there, I think that gives you, and I would say from adversity comes strength. I think a lot of what I went through as a child has given me immeasurable strength and resilience in terms of how I approach things, do things now. Far more so, and it's I think, and I've worked quite extensively with other people in our industry that have come from very challenging backgrounds, and I would say, absolutely there is an absolute there's real proof that for certainly the people I've worked with who've had those they seem to have a strength, a resilience, a determination, and a persistence that you don't necessarily see in everyone. So I think that's stood me in good stead. The learnings I took from there, how to navigate very challenging, difficult times and get through it, not just on an emotional level, but just think of the future, think of brighter days, think about pushing through and what's on the other side. So I think a lot of that I took from my childhood. And then I think that's kind of stayed with me. So I think I've said to you before, for me, when I'm hiring people, I look for two things. One is work ethic, and the other one is a kind of a can-do, positive attitude, a determination, a growth mindset. And I think those things I've had. I would say I have in abundance,
Yeah.
and as a consequence of having those things, I've been able to navigate through some pretty challenging situations, not just personally, but also from a work perspective as well.
No, absolutely. And it's, again, something that's come up quite regularly is that grit, resilience. You
Yeah.
know, we just don't have the same fear of failure or rejection because they're used to dealing with so many different situations.
Well, yeah,
It's sort of like standard.
exactly. I mean, look, when you've been in, if I think about it like this, if I think back to some of the things I've been in as a child and those the very, very difficult moments, times, when you've been down at the bottom,
Yeah.
and you've clawed your way out through that and come out the other side with everything intact, and you can still, that gives you a strength, that gives you that determination. So I think it's applying those things, and I think unless you've been through that, and I wouldn't say this is carte blanche applies to everyone, but I think it's difficult to get that grit or to get that ability to kind of see through something that's very difficult and challenging. And we all come across difficult, challenging situations, circumstances, either personal or in a work. And I think that just gives you the edge to be able to deal with that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So, what has been your proudest moment of your career, and why is that?
Oh gosh, wow.
I'm sure there's many, I know, but there's
Yeah,
if you pick one
I
or
think
two, if you
yeah, I think that there's many, and I can think of many different, getting in any you know going getting your first big orders. I remember when I first joined HP, and and I have to say, when I first joined there, I was, having worked in CC, having worked in some other, where I would say, it's a hard, fast, tough environment. Going into HP initially, it was like, wow, this is a bit like being in a spa. It's very nice. You have fruit brought into the office on a Tuesday. There's all the, it's like, wow. I feel like I'm in the club lounge. Um, and I just thought I saw this as a great opportunity because how can I put it? It was like I have what I would call I've learned a lot of lessons working in the channel, how
Yeah.
to sell, how to be, pushy to achieve what you wanted to achieve but without being overly aggressive. And I'd learned so many, I've become very, very numbers focused, target orientated. And when I took that into HP, into I would say, a slightly softer environment, um, and applied that, I realized I could make. So I think in my first year, there was conversations about potentially getting President's Club, which was like, wow. I didn't, because in those days it wasn't allowed in your first year, but I did get European Achievers, and then I subsequently got President's Club the following year. So, I mean, and for those that are listening, it's like the top 1-2% of
Yeah.
salespeople in the company. Um, so that for me was a monumental achievement, and I think back on that, and I just think, wow, what a great, what a just an incredible place I'm in, and I'm getting all this support, surrounded by great people, and I'm getting this fabulous recognition, and all I've got to do is go out and sell, and it's what I love doing. So it was great.
Amazing. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a job sometimes when you love it so much, does it? It's just sort of something you find so natural and easy to do, whereas other people obviously struggle. But if you love it and as passionate about it as you are, then it's not like going to work, is it?
No, and in those days, I was focused more from an HP standpoint on the consumables business, and the focus was on really and going out and winning large deals back from competition. So, there were a number of customers then which enabled me to win that first award. Marks and Spencers, the Post Office, Sainsbury's, and one or two others, which were massive reman accounts. So I know what that means, remanufactured cartridges accounts, spending millions and millions. And actually, what I going out and winning all of those, I think it was in the course of a year or 18 months back, and convincing customers for the right reasons, because of value, because of, return on investment and so on, that buying original cartridges was better than remans. Actually doing that, and that, yeah, it was a mad year, 18 months, and obviously I got the recognition at the end of it.
And I'm sure it was a nice destination that you went as well.
I think the first one that we went to was Puerto Rico.
Oh,
So that was really nice. The second one was Hawaii, and then again Puerto Rico on the third one. So
lovely.
yeah, very nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Yes.
Yeah. I've not been to either of those two places, so I must work harder next time. How do you think that coming from a low social economic background has impacted your career, either positively or negatively, or both?
I think it goes back to a little bit, Yvonne, to what I was saying earlier, which is I think it makes you more determined. I have very clear memories of what it was like as a child and growing up with nothing. And I think one of the wonderful things about our industry, and being in sales, is that you determine your own future. You get out what you put in. And I would say, my biggest motivator over the years has been, I do not want to go back to where I've been.
Yeah,
So arguably, I would say certainly in my younger years, it was about earning as much money as I could, having a nice house, having nice cars, being able to provide for my family. I think as you get older, certainly into your 50s, you start to realize that actually creating great memories and spending time with family and those things are probably, if more important.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
obviously, when you're young, you're very driven to kind of achieve and to climb the ladder. So that was my real motivator. But it was also about, I think when you've come from that kind of background, low, socio-economic, poor, and challenged, I think, there is also, I would say, a driver for recognition, because I
Yeah,
think, for people that have come from that kind of background, maybe not have a chip on their shoulder, but there's always a bit of, am I good enough?
yeah,
Am I an equal? Am I someone? And I think there is always that kind of stigma attached. I think, as I said, this industry allows you to climb out of that and to create a future for yourself and have a career and have nice things. So I think, it, there was always that stigma there, but
yeah,
that the opportunity that this industry provided me was the ability to climb out of that. But I still think, for me, I still at times I'd say I have a bit of an am I good enough imposter
yeah,
syndrome kind
yeah.
of bit, which is, I think, whether it's you, me, or other, it's kind of every now and then that little thing taps you on the shoulder and you have to check it.
Put it away.
Yeah,
Get your chip
exactly.
cups out, feed it some bananas, you know.
Exactly.
It's again something that's come up quite consistently when I've been speaking with people is that value piece. It's people just don't value themselves in the same way that they would if they'd come from a more privileged upbringing. It's something that's very consistent, and that leads to imposter syndrome, like feeling like they're not good enough. So yeah, I think we've all experienced it. People just assume that it's women that get imposter syndrome, and it absolutely isn't. It's anybody that comes from any disadvantaged background where you're the minority. So for us, we are the minority in the industry because most of the people, or a lot of them, do come from a bit more privilege, which is amazing. But it's sort of that imposter syndrome bit that does kick in and affects us all, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things I've tried to do, certainly as I went and moved on in my career and started managing people, is to try to be understanding and empathetic around those, because I think, people generally will um, present what they want you to see, what they want you to believe. They put masks
Yeah,
on. We all wear masks to a certain
yeah,
degree. I've always tried to instill, from a leadership standpoint, a culture where people can be themselves, and that they, if they're feeling like they're having a crap day and they're feeling down, or that they can talk to either me or to the man or whatever, and I think when you have an environment like that that's supportive, I think what you get then is trust,
yeah,
and with trust comes speed and agility to get things done, because people feel like, I trust this person, he's got my back, they're looking out for me, they'll do the best for me,
yeah,
and you know, I've always had a view that family, always comes first,
mhm,
and in personal situations, in work, and if someone's got challenges or it's like, go deal with it, sort it
yeah.
out, let me know when, whatever. For me, I always want to try and be as supportive as possible to people.
It's about paying it forward, isn't it, as well? And, I think
100%.
hence why you do what you do with the charities that you work with,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah. So just because you touched on it at the beginning, so I
yeah,
am, and again, it links back somewhat. My motivation here, or to be involved with these charities, is because of my what happened in my childhood. So I am a trustee, a board trustee of the Caldecott Foundation, which I'm very proud to be. So Caldecott is where I grew up in care as a child,
yeah,
and I think I'm the first ex Caldecott child, to actually be on the board. So as I said, very
incredible.
privileged. But I think it's also
Congratulations.
No, thank you. It's also very nice and to give the perspective of someone who has been through
Yeah,
Caldecott, had all the experience, and can give that perspective, that view. So I try to do that. I regularly speak at their events for fundraising and other things, and yeah, as I said, it gives me an immense amount of pleasure to be part of the board for that. The other one is Trailblazers. Trailblazers. Is a charity that works on supporting, mentoring young offenders with a view of stopping reoffending.
yeah,
And because I don't know if you know, but the UK has probably got, I think it's the worst reoffending rate of any of the countries in Europe. And it costs us as taxpayers anywhere between about 55,000 pounds a year up to about 200,000 pounds a year, depending on the prison and all the rest of it, to have someone in prison for a year. So there's a massive benefit to the exchequer. But as the biggest benefit is always if you can um, teach and guide and mentor a young person, a young guy who's say 18, 19 in prison, got involved in gangs, drugs, whatever, that actually you can live a different life. You can
yeah,
do things differently. It's down to you. It's your choices, and you help them see that there is a different path in life to take.
yeah,
Um, I can tell you there is no more rewarding feeling in the world than having spent 6 months mentoring someone in a prison, which is what I used to do. I don't mentor now, but I used to regularly go into Aylesbury Prison, Young Offenders Institute, spend 4, 5, 6 months with an offender where I'd go in, regularly meet them every week, every other week, spend an hour, 40 minutes with them, help them go through, get them a life plan, think about what they're going to do when they get through the gate out the other side. And I would be with them through that process. And then out in the community when they're released, I still continue to see them. And, I've got many positive stories of young guys that I've spent time with, mentored, and they've now got jobs, living very different lives. And I can tell you that is extremely rewarding on a
yeah,
personal level. Um, but the one thing that as to why I got involved with Trailblazers, because if you look at the adult prison population in the UK, 25 years and under, about 50% are ex-care leavers. So
wow,
what happens when you leave care at the age of 18 is all of your support, everything that you've been grown up with, that you it just goes, it disappears, and a lot of these youngsters get put into homes and various places where they're surrounded by drugs, gangs, all this kind of, and they just end up getting into trouble. So, really, there needs to be far greater support for care leavers. And a better plan, and you probably, Fatima Whitbread is obviously an
yeah.
ex-care leaver who's been going around advocating this, Fatima's campaign. She and amongst others, it's an area that's been challenged for a number of years. So I'm very privileged to be involved with that.
Oh, well, they're very lucky to have you. I mean, what a great role model that you are for these young people. And like you say, you can't be what you can't see. And having experienced it personally is invaluable because a lot of people, the support and try and help out with these charities, they're all very well intended and they want to do the right thing, but to have first-hand experience is a completely different level. To have that deep
Yeah,
understanding of what it actually feels like and say, well, I've been there, so you can change,
yeah,
rather than just somebody that hasn't been through it telling them to change. You can show them how you've done it, which is,
yeah.
absolutely amazing, Richard.
And actually, I think that's where I have a degree of credibility because I grew up in care, and not only because I grew up in care, so I understand the challenges of that, but also the fact that I've gone on and built a career for
Yeah,
myself. I'm not just someone who's standing there saying, "Oh, I've actually walked the talk
yeah,
and so therefore, from that perspective, there's almost a leveling and a degree of okay, I can trust this guy,
yeah.
and from there, we obviously build a relationship, which has happened, on a number of occasions. So yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely incredible. So, knowing what you know now and everything that you have achieved, which is
But
loads,
I
what
was
would
just
you
going to say
say?
one
Oh,
last thing before you
oh,
jump into your next questions.
sorry,
So
go on.
I do need to say, so if the reoffending rate in the UK is about 36-40%, I haven't got the latest figures, but just to let you know that if someone gets mentored by Trailblazers, that drops down to 9%.
Wow,
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
So, and I'm assuming anybody can mentor these individuals. You don't have to have an
Well, yeah.
experience or,
But you don't necessarily have to have experience. They're always looking for new mentors, but it is a commitment, right? So you're talking at least once a fortnight, the ability to go into one of the seven prisons and actually spend time there, and talk and build a relationship that is going to be over a number of months, right? So there is a commitment. You will have to obviously go through police checks, DMB
yeah,
police checks, all of that stuff, and then you get trained how to do this. But then, I can't tell, and it was a little bit daunting when I first did it. But you go in, you go through the gate, through security, you have all the checks, and then you literally go into a key room and you put your finger into the machine. It releases you a set of keys, and then you're wandering around the prison. You're
wow.
going on the wings, and you're
Oh my
meeting
gosh.
yeah. So it can be a bit daunting. So, but if you're up for that, and you see the benefit and the reward, not just in terms
Yeah,
of what that does, but to you personally, I call it soul food.
yeah.
Then yeah, by all means, contact me, and I'll be happy to share the information with you.
Great. Well,
So
I'll make sure that the details, well, people can contact you directly or they can come via us or the channel, to connect the dots if you like, because I'm sure there'll be somebody on here or, now I'm more understanding of the process, then I'm sure we have people within the channel community that we can rally up to try and support you on that mission because those stats are, incredible in terms of the difference it makes to these young
yeah.
people, for
And
sure.
the other thing I would add before you go, I'll give you the chance to ask that next question again, is one of the things I'm always looking for is opportunities for these young guys, and they're typically 18, 19, 20 years old, to have employment opportunities, right,
Right.
within organizations. And I think there are some organizations that do this very, very successfully now. So James Timpson, who
Yes.
so
Some shoes.
James,
Yeah.
I mean, he is the beacon of doing this. But most Timpson shoe bars have ex-offenders working in there. And the reason being is because James has created the opportunity within prisons to train them on how to repair shoes, how to do all that stuff. So when they come out, they actually have access to employment, which I think is fabulous.
Incredible.
And yeah, so there are a lot of these young guys who are looking for opportunities. Obviously, yes, they've made errors earlier on in their life, but many of them are keen to get on, have an opportunity to show what they can do. So I would say anyone who's listening, who's open to employing young offenders and giving them an opportunity in life, then again, contact me.
No, brilliant. No, thank you. And I'll make sure that we get your details readily available. So there's no excuses. Can I ask my next question now?
You go for it. Sorry, Yvonne.
That's all right. No, look, you're so passionate, and we do want to hear about this. This is great stuff. At the end of the day, the more people we can help, the better. And even though this is, geared up about the channel, the connection with the social mobility piece, it's all consistent. So absolutely, more than happy for you to share away, Richard. I wouldn't expect anything less.
Brilliant. Thank you, Yvonne.
No, you're welcome. So going back to my question, knowing what you know now and everything
Yep.
that you have achieved, what would you say to a younger Richard?
Um, what do I say to a younger Richard? I would certainly say, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, I was definitely a workaholic in my 40s. I would say I've learned work-life balance now, and that's important. Um, that's something that maybe does come with age and experience and knowledge of life. Um, I would say. also don't always be so concerned about what other people think. I
Hmm.
think maybe, and I've spoken to a lot of other people that have come from more challenging backgrounds, and quite often we seek approval. We seek um, um, it's the whole "Am I good enough?" thing. So
Yeah.
I, I think yeah, not be so concerned about pleasing other people all the time, and worrying about what other people think. That's certainly something I would say as well.
Brilliant. So I know we've already touched on it because we've talked about the Trailblazers and trying to companies
Yeah.
give young people opportunities. Apart from that, what
Yeah.
support do you think that companies could be doing, or other things do you think they could do to help support people from a low socioeconomic
Yeah,
background?
I think things have changed quite a lot in the last ten years, I would say. I mean, look, my people and I would say people like me, you, and others that kind of come from more challenged backgrounds, low socioeconomic, had to work bloody hard to make the opportunity and get to where we are. And I think we were very much really seriously in the minority. I think, a lot of certainly, if I get a lot of people were only interested in hiring university graduates, people that have
Yeah,
been through a formal education and come out the other side with a degree and on all those kind of things. And those things, I think, certainly when I was younger, were just, I mean, they were so far from reach. It was incredible. And I do know other people that kind of did degrees and other things later in life, and good for
yeah,
them. Um, but I think nowadays companies don't necessarily they're not just interested in your education background and your formal education. I think they're also looking at what you would bring. So, I touched on it earlier about your attitude, do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a positive attitude? Do you exhibit strong work ethic?
yeah,
Are you commercially astute? Do you communicate well? So I think those things are valued far more highly now than they were maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I do see changes with companies, hiring people who don't necessarily have a formal education.
yeah,
I also see organizations, looking more to apprenticeship schemes. And I think actually there's a lot of value in apprenticeship schemes. And I think companies that create apprenticeship schemes for people that maybe leave school early or leave school when they're 16, don't want a formal education, but want to go on and learn a trade or an industry skill, whatever, then I think that creates great opportunities. So more schemes like that, and
yeah,
especially schemes that are targeting people from low socioeconomic
yeah,
backgrounds to give them the opportunity. And there are a number of companies who are doing that now. I know Deloitte does, PwC does. There's numbers of companies that are doing this because they see the value in it. And
yeah,
a lot of these people can, given the opportunity and having people that believe in them, because a lot of time they don't have people that believe in them. Then they can go on and do great things, and we've
yeah,
seen that time and time again.
absolutely. So my final question for you. What one piece of advice would you give to somebody that does come from a low social economic background that is trying to navigate a career in the channel?
Um, I would say, nowadays, just look forward. The world is your oyster, and you will get out what you put in. If you are determined enough, driven enough, um, you're capable of getting a few no's and still bouncing back, then just crack on, because there are plenty of people who will give you the opportunity. I know, for instance, people like, I don't know, I don't know Mike Norris that well, but I mean, if you persisted enough to pick up the phone to Mike Norris, give me a job, blah, blah, push, 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 or, you know, um, Penny Williams over at CDW, or, whoever. I mean, what these people want to see is determination, drive,
Yeah.
hunger, desire. Someone who recognize, who sees an opportunity and grasps for it and and is prepared to give their all. Right? That's what. And if you show up in that way, opportunities will find their way to you. It's just showing the desire, the passion, the ambition.
I love that. And there was something that someone once told me, and this is the approach that I took when I wanted to get into sales and nobody would give me the opportunity to start off with, was
Mm.
someone once said, throw enough mud and some of it will stick. And that's exactly what I did. I kept throwing mud until some of it
Yeah.
stuck.
Listen, if I think back to when I was selling, and I still sell now, but obviously as an individual seller, a salesman out on the road, the amount of no's we used to get, and you know, there are some statistics somewhere that apparently the average customer says yes on the seventh or eighth time or something, but many salespeople give up on the fifth or sixth time. There's some statistics out there to that effect, right? It is about persistence, determination. Just keep going. Don't be don't get negative. Don't feel like, oh, that's it. Just keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Richard, you have well and truly smashed the class ceiling. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, no, it's been amazing. Thank you so much.